What's up, everybody? Today we are comparing the Kawasaki ZX4 to the Yamaha MT07. These two bikes are actually pretty close in specifications, pretty close in price point, and I know that a lot of you out there are looking for that entry-level beginner bike that's not going to be something so entry-level like a Ninja 400, something you can really grow into. And both of these bikes are going to fit that bill, but in very different ways. Now, the MT07 over here is a giveaway bike, but there's a bit of a twist because I have two of them. Yes, I bought two MT07s, brand spanking new off the showroom floor. I am super excited about this giveaway because you only have a limited time to get entered to win either of these motorcycles. You're gonna have two chances to win. We've never had something like this. These are great chances to win, great odds. And on top of that, I'm adding a complete kit of beginner rider gear as well. So if you want a helmet, jacket, gloves, boots, and pants along with your MT07, head over to yamanoob.co and get entered to win. Time is running out. I think you only have a couple days left to get entered in for this giveaway, and you're not gonna wanna miss it because you're gonna have two chances to win. Also, the ZX4 is a giveaway bike as well. We just fitted it with a new exhaust, which you guys are going to hear later in the video. So without further ado, let's get started talking about both of these fantastic motorcycles. So you spec sheet warriors out there are going to be happy because we're going through all the pertinent specifications of both of these motorcycles. Let's start off with the one that most people want to hear about: price. The MT07 is pretty reasonably priced at $8,199. That's MSRP. Your mileage may vary depending on where you live. I've seen these going for out the door close to $10,000. And as many of you know, over here, the Kawasaki ZX4RR lists for $9,699. But MSRP, you're looking at close to $12,000 out the door for this machine. So a little bit of a price differential. We're going to find out why they're a little bit different in price. Both of these motorcycles have lots of features to offer, but this one offers a teensy bit more in terms of technology, which is why you see that reflected in the price. But let's talk about the other most pertinent part of any motorcycle, and that is the motor. This engine over here is a 689cc parallel twin with a 270-degree crank, making 73 or 75-ish horsepower and about 50 foot-pounds of torque. The cool thing about the MT07 is that power comes on nice and linearly. If you look at the dyno graph of this machine, it basically charts a Y equals X axis and a perfectly flat torque curve. Let's hear how this motorcycle sounds really quick too. We'll start it up here in the shop. Try not to die from all the carbon monoxide fumes over here. Nice burbly sound. Really nice barky engine on this thing. It's a ton of fun to ride. Peak power comes on at about 8,000 to 9,000 RPM, with the RPMs trailing at about 10,000 RPM and ending there. The ZX4 features a totally different party. Over here you have a 399cc inline 4. There is no other motorcycle currently on the market that is anything like this. It's a very unique engine. This thing makes about 75 horsepower after you do the flash, because everyone knows this motorcycle does not make that sort of power unless you get it flashed here in the North American market. But unfortunately, it only makes about 27.5 foot-pounds of torque. You guys got to remember, it's a small little engine revving really high. RPMs finish here at 16,000 RPM. This is really a screamer of a motorcycle. You got to really work for the power. We recently fitted a full Yoshimura exhaust system on this machine, so you guys get to hear how this sounds. Nice bassy sound over here. The coolest thing about the ZX4 is it sounds like a real big bike. Both of these motorcycles, if you put exhaust on them, do not sound like beginner bikes. They're not going to sound like lawnmowers. They're not going to sound piddly. They sound like real deal motorcycles, which I think is the appeal for a lot of people looking to get started with these bikes. They do not have that piddly little beginner bike feel. Let's talk about the next stats that are most important for people looking to buy this motorcycle for the first time. That's weight, seat height, and ergonomics. So these bikes are actually really close in terms of these stats. The MT07 weighs 406 pounds and has a 31.7-inch seat height. Now, I'm about 5'11" with a 32-inch inseam. That's a hard thing to say. And when I swing a leg over the MT07, this is a really neutral seating position. For me, this is exactly what I'm looking for in a street-oriented motorcycle. I want to be comfortable, I want to be upright. This almost has like a motard-esque feel to me as I put my foot on the pegs here. Very neutral seating position, got a nice wide tank. I feel like I can really grip this motorcycle, feel really confident on it. The bars are set in such a way that it feels very comfortable. You guys can see I don't have much of a bend in my back. I'm hanging out on this bike, feeling really good. I could ride this thing all day long and not even feel it. So I can comfortably flat foot this machine, like I said, at about 5'11" with a 32-inch inseam. I've got a slight bend in my leg. If you were a little bit shorter, I think this would be totally fine. It's not too tall, not too intimidating. This is actually a pretty easy bike to ride. The other thing I want to mention is the steering sweep on this bike. So you can go really far lock to lock on this thing. So slow speed maneuvers should be pretty easy to accomplish on this thing. Now, when we look over at the ZX4, it's weird because the specs say that it's a similar story. You have a 414-pound curb weight and 31.5-inch seat height. So negligibly heavier and a little bit taller. But when I swing a leg over it, because it's a fully fared bike and because it's a little bit different, it's quite different to sit on. It feels like you're much lower in the bike. You know, you have all this plastic in front of you. The feeling of this motorcycle is totally different. It's a little bit further reach to the bars. You guys can see I have a slight bend in my back when I do that, but it's not quite as bad as a true super sport. If you were to jump on an R6 or something really aggressive like that, you'd be all the way over here, you'd be way up higher. This is actually a pretty comfortable little bike. I would happily ride this thing all day long. I could easily do 200 to 300 miles on this bike and not even feel it. Again, slight bend in my legs over here at 5'11" with a 32-inch inseam. I think this motorcycle, despite the fact that it's an inline 4 and a little bit wider than the MT07, sort of side to side here, I think a beginner rider could very easily ride this thing because right here, it's very narrow. You can easily grip this motorcycle and allow yourself a lot of leeway over here to get both of your feet down. I think unless you were in that kind of 5'4" to 5'3" range, you could very comfortably flat foot this bike with both feet or at least with one foot. I don't think it would be that bad. Let's talk tech, suspension, and features. This is where the ZX4 is really gonna shine, and you're gonna notice why it costs a little bit extra. If I flip the key on over here, you'll notice that we have a beautiful full color TFT dash. You got the RPM counter right over here, very easy to read. You can cycle through different modes. You can cycle through these things. This thing has different rider modes, different levels of traction control. It has different quick shifter options. You can put it on or off. Really cool set of features on this thing. A fully ride-by-wire throttle, which the other bike has a cable-actuated throttle, which some people find a little bit better. I find this throttle to be a little bit finicky. But you can notice sitting in the cockpit here, this is a very premium motorcycle. This is not a cheap feeling bike at all. And that is a gripe that I do have with Yamahas from time to time. I find that the MT bikes, although they are freaking awesome, they do tend to feel a little bit cheap. The suspension over here, we have a Showa single function fork over here. All you can do is adjust this for preload up at the front. I feel like this was a huge miss for Kawasaki to not offer this motorcycle with at least rebound, preload, and compression. You don't have to do it independent on each fork. I understand that nowadays manufacturers are going for the single function, compression on one side, rebound on the other, and preload on both. I would be happy with that. Just give us some level of adjustability. I think it's a crying shame that this motorcycle does not come with that at the front. However, at the rear, you have a shock that is adjustable for preload and rebound. So you can dial in a little bit over here, get it set up for your weight to make sure that this motorcycle is sprung correctly. Again, at about 165 to 170 pounds, this motorcycle feels pretty good for my weight. I don't feel like I need to respring it, but if you were a little bit heavier or substantially lighter, you might have to go with a different spring, but you can adjust the rebound to make sure that it's not too pogo-y at the back. Now, if we move over to the MT07, we have the kind of polar opposite over here. The MT07 is a pretty bare bones bike that has not changed much since 2013 or 14 when it was released. If I key the bike on over here, you notice it has this inverted LCD dash, which, to be honest, looks really good. This is super crisp, very easy to read, but you can already tell there's a lot less going on here. This kind of gives you everything you need and nothing you don't. You have the big analog, actually it's not analog, it's digital. You have the big digital readout over here for RPM, a big gear position indicator, which actually for beginner riders is awesome. You know, you want to be on the motorcycle and you can very quickly see what gear you're in. You know, if you're going down the road and you don't know if you're in second or third gear, you can just look down and you know exactly what gear you're in. Fuel gauge over here, very easy to read as well. I love that feature on this bike. But that's about all you're gonna get. You don't have ride modes, you don't have any traction control, so you have to be a little more careful with the MT07. If you're looking at this bike as a beginner rider, you have to understand that it makes 50 foot-pounds of torque, and it gives you that torque right immediately, and it's not gonna save you if you crack it open too fast, like the ZX4 would. So if you are looking at this bike as a beginner rider, I'd highly recommend maybe you're a little bit older in age, or maybe a returning rider, or maybe you have a more sensible head on your shoulder. I would definitely not put an 18-year-old on an MT07. So suspension up front, very bare bones. This was mildly revised for the 2021 model year. A couple changes happened to this motorcycle, but you still have the same super bouncy, super pogo-y front end suspension over here. That is one of the weakest parts about the MT07. And is definitely one of the downfalls of this bike. But again, for the beginner rider, you're not really gonna notice that. You only start to notice that once you start going to track days and really riding a whole bunch of different bikes, you notice that front end doing what you want it to do. The MT07 is gonna be totally fine for beginners, but you would definitely feel the difference for the front end of the ZX4 versus the MT07. Out back, the MT07, just like the ZX4, has a rebound and preload adjustable rear shock. So you can dial in the preload for your weight. You can get the rear to sit a little bit better, a little stiffer, rebound, kind of adjust that a little bit for you. And so that's pretty cool. You know, this bike doesn't come with a quick shifter, it doesn't come with a TFT, but I think the fundamentals of this bike are pretty sweet. So all that being said, what's my opinion? Well, I think it depends on the type of riding and the type of rider you want to be. The MT07, put a full pipe on this, it sounds awesome, it's raucous, it does wheelies, it is a perfect street motorcycle in my opinion. If you're just bopping around town, you want something super fun, you want something torquey, the MT07 is going to be the right fit for you. The ZX4, I've said this before about this motorcycle, a very particular person needs to buy this thing. It's the type of person that wants an entry-level motorcycle, wants the sound and feel of a super bike, you got that 16,000 RPM redline, but doesn't want to be super uncomfortable, wants something they can ride around every day and enjoy. This motorcycle can absolutely be your everyday commuter, your everyday fun motorcycle, but I do think it is a little bit compromised with the lack of torque and the overall kind of twitchiness of the throttle and the fact that it's not exactly a super sport. So if you want the look and feel of a real sport bike, man, the ZX4 is really gonna do it for you. I mean, look at this thing, it's fully fared, it's green, it makes the right sounds, and it doesn't really compromise, right? Like if you got a ZX6 or a ZX10, you're compromising a lot. You're gonna be uncomfortable, it's a little too fast for the street, but this thing, it really hits a sweet spot for those of you who want the flash and panache of a super bike, but don't wanna put up with all the BS that those bikes deal with. So if it were my money, I still think I'd go with an MT07. These bikes are fantastic, they work so well, they are bulletproof reliable, they're a known quantity, you can do so much with this thing. You can put bags on it, go on a big tour, you can use it as a commuter bike. I think it's a little bit more flexible as an everyday jack-of-all-trades motorcycle, but if you want something really special and cool, the ZX4 is going to be your best bet. But if it were my money, like I said, MT07 between these two, that is my final verdict and opinion. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video on between the MT07 and the ZX4. Let me know down in the comments which one you would pick. Let me know if you think I'm wrong or if you think you're a ZX4 simp and you're gonna buy this bike over this one any day of the week. Remember, the MT07 and that MT07 over here are both giveaway motorcycles. Head over to yammynoob.co. Make sure you get your chances locked in and loaded. The time is running out. This is a really cool giveaway. You're gonna have 2 chances to win the exact same prize, which is really sweet. So make sure you get your chances locked and loaded. And remember, this ZX4 over here, also a giveaway bike, full exhaust, recently fitted to this thing. This thing's gonna get given away in November, so make sure you get your chances locked and loaded for that one too. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Keep watching Yammy Noob.